It was early morning when I received a call from the bar Ethan often visited. His reckless behavior, practically living there, no longer surprised me. Ethan had always been a wild child. Now that he had grown up and been accepted back into the family, with the halo of the Gu family's heir, his temper had only worsened. In the private room, on the jade coffee table, lay a woman dressed only in a bikini, covered in various types of liquor. Ethan raised his glass and gestured towards me from across the room.
"Ah, it's my sister. Please, have a seat."
He sneered as he poured the contents of his glass onto the sofa, his leather shoe pressing down on the woman's chest, grinding it in for good measure. He then leaned back, finding a comfortable position to recline.
"Ethan, stop this nonsense."
"Sister, I'm not being nonsensical. They all come here willingly. Look at her, the desire in her eyes is almost overflowing. Don't you think she looks a lot like you?"
Enough. If you hate me, take it out on me. Others are innocent.
His expression turned cold. Casually, he loosened his tie.
"My dear sister Emma is still so kind. How about you take her place?"
I had barely started to remove my jacket when Ethan roughly pulled it back up. He turned and shouted at the others who were too scared to make a sound.
"Get the hell out!"
Everyone immediately stood up. The woman on the coffee table, ignoring the liquor on her body, hurriedly left, glasses clinking and spilling everywhere. There was hardly any place to step around the sofa, with glass shards everywhere. Ethan grabbed Emma's neck with one hand and reached behind her with the other to unhook her bra. Just before she was about to pass out, he forcefully threw her head aside.
"Emma, do you really think you're a savior?"
If there had been a dog in front of you back then, would you have taken it in too? What does someone else's dignity have to do with you?
"But you have something to do with me. Emma."
Emma clutched her neck, gasping for breath, staring straight at him. The next second, Ethan grabbed her waist and threw her onto the sofa soaked with wine with all his strength.
"Emma, stop flattering yourself."
With that, he turned and left. Emma's family owed the Ethan family several lives. The Ethan family went bankrupt because her parents framed them. His parents chose to end their lives when the creditors came knocking. At that time, Emma didn't hesitate to take in Ethan.
I even encountered a few of the Ethan family's enemies because of it.
As a young girl, Emma took little Ethan with her, wandering from place to place. That period must have been the darkest time in Ethan's life. Under a dilapidated grass shed, the walls were crawling with scorpions and centipedes.
"He said the person he hated most was me."
So the backpack Emma sewed for him, he cut it up with scissors. The lunch she brought him, he threw the whole lunchbox into the trash. The teachers she communicated with, he insulted them in class. He became a notorious troublemaker in the city. Every day, he had different wounds on his body. The time he hated Emma the most was before the college entrance exam when she found him playing games with his classmates in an internet cafe. Ignoring his protests, she tied him up with a rope and forcibly took him home.
"Emma, just you wait, when I grow up, the first person I'll deal with is you. Even if you pass away, I'll dig you up from the grave and scatter your ashes."
Ethan is a man of his word. So after being taken back by the Ethan family, the first person he wanted to destroy was Emma. And to the heir of the Ethan family, her life was as insignificant as an ant's. The landlord kicked her out, telling her to take all her things and leave. The resumes she sent out received no responses. Even cleaning jobs wouldn't hire her.
After Ethan returned to the Ethan family, my life was ruined overnight.
Everyone thought that when Ethan returned to the family, the first thing he would do was take me in, give me a good life, and repay me. But what awaited me was nothing but storms and tempests from him.
Is he trying to drive you to despair?
Why don't you post what he's done online and let everyone condemn him?
The heir of the family couldn't be brought down by public opinion. Even the old Ethan, who was once a madman, would trace the internet line to the other person's house, twist their neck, and make them delete the post. What about now?
With no means to sustain myself, I walked out of the company that had rejected me and stood on the main road. A globally limited edition supercar sped straight towards me. I closed my eyes, waiting for fate to release me. But it stopped just 10 centimeters away from me.
So eager to die by my hand?
Can you stop making things difficult for me? I'm almost at my wit's end.
Really? I actually have a job that's perfect for you, and only you can do it.
Of course, I knew he wouldn't have any good intentions towards me, but I didn't expect the job he mentioned to be wearing provocative clothes for him. The hotel room was filled with lingerie bought by the staff. There were bunny outfits, instructor uniforms, teacher outfits, nurse uniforms. Ethan sat casually on the bed, his hands propped behind him.
Try them on. Didn't you want a job? My personal assistant, do you like it?
Just as I lifted my foot to leave, he rushed over and grabbed my neck.
Aren't you already unable to afford food? Still want to refuse me?
His dangerous breath whispered in my ear, and I took a deep breath.
Just put them on, right?
What else do you think?
Indeed, he hated me so much that this was just to humiliate my pitiful self-esteem.
Fine, I agree.
When Samantha put on the bunny police officer uniform, Ethan looked at her with a gaze that seemed to appreciate his pet.
I told you, this job suits you perfectly, and no one else could do it.
He smiled coldly, beckoning her to come to his side.
Kneel.
Samantha's spine stiffened, and she lowered her eyes, slowly dropping to her knees. Ethan's shiny black shoe lifted her chin.
Samantha, why don't you dare to look at me? You weren't like this when you smashed my game console.
His tone was low and filled with a dangerous undertone. Samantha swallowed involuntarily. He forcefully kicked her head away.
Disgusting. My shoes are dirty, clean them with your tongue.
From the corner of her eye, she saw his malicious smile. After a long while, he snorted coldly.
How boring. Emma, don't you love playing with men? Isn't this job I found for you just perfect?
Samantha should have known he had no kindness towards her at all. Previously, to make ends meet for Ethan, she had taken many risque photos. Now, seeing such clothes and camera lenses triggered severe physical reactions. The psychologist said that if she didn't want to relapse, she should avoid such stimuli. But now it seemed like this was the only path she could take. When the hotel staff came in to deliver food and saw Samantha kneeling on the ground, the disdain in their eyes almost drowned her. Ethan used his shoe to lift her chin in front of them.
Samantha, look, which dish do you like?
Her dignity was trampled under his feet. The staff didn't comment in front of her out of respect for Ethan. But once he left, rumors spread like a landslide. Mr. Johnson looked at Samantha's body with a strange gaze. But he called out to her just as she was about to leave.
Take this, it doesn't hurt, and Mr. Ethan likes them young.
He disdainfully tossed a card at her. It was for a hymen repair surgery. Samantha's hand holding the card turned white from the force. Before she could explain, he took out the risque photos she had taken and placed them in front of her. He pointed at the photos and rolled his eyes.
Mr. Ethan is not someone you can deceive. Some things can be faked, but the feeling of disgust cannot.
As the tension in the room escalated, Ethan's eyes bore into me, cold and indifferent.
Don't you think she looks a lot like you?
I gritted my teeth, trying to hold back my emotions.
Enough. If you hate me, take it out on me. Others are innocent.
His expression turned cold as he casually loosened his tie.
My dear sister Emma is still so kind. How about you take her place?
I had barely started to remove my jacket when Ethan roughly pulled it back up. He turned and shouted at the others who were too scared to make a sound.
Get the hell out!
Everyone immediately stood up. The woman on the coffee table, ignoring the liquor on her body, hurriedly left, glasses clinking and spilling everywhere. Samantha woke up to see Ethan's bloodshot eyes and stubble-covered chin. He looked pitiful, like a homeless man.
Samantha, you're awake?
Who are you?
He was momentarily stunned.
Samantha, it's me, Ethan.
Ethan, let me go. I just want to live my ordinary life like before.
Ethan forcefully grabbed her chin, making her look him in the eye.
Ha, ordinary life? Wearing those clothes for other men to see? Don't be ungrateful, Emma. From today on, don't think about going anywhere.
Ethan slammed the door as he left. From that moment, 2 bodyguards were stationed at the door. Samantha was imprisoned by him. Even if he didn't imprison her, in her current state, she couldn't leave the hospital room. She didn't know what was wrong with her. There seemed to be a large blank space in her memory. Ethan willfully placed a platinum anklet on her ankle. She thought it was just an ordinary piece of jewelry until she got up to go to the bathroom, and it sent a series of electric shocks. Only then did she realize it was a perfect shackle. Through the window, she saw Ethan embracing the woman from the hotel on the lawn below. He had countless women around him. She didn't understand why he had to torment her like this. The sound of the door opening echoed in the room, and Emma hurried over, hoping to ask if she could leave. But the person who entered slapped her hard across the face.
Slut.
The woman still had the key in the door, her beautiful face filled with anger, her eyes burning with jealousy.
I knew why Ethan kept postponing our wedding. Turns out it was because of you, you wretch.
Lily squinted her eyes, sizing Emma up and down.
Just a piece of trash trying on lingerie for me? And you dare to dream of taking my place? He's blind as a bat. Dare to break off the engagement with me, he won't know what hit him.
Emma covered her swollen face, about to retort, when a familiar figure appeared in front of her. A doctor in a white coat stood between Emma and Lily's vicious expression.
This is a hospital. If you cause any more trouble, I'll call security.
It was James.
You wretch. You stole my Ethan. Go to hell.
With that, Lily picked up a chair from the floor and swung it towards Emma's face. In the next second, James bent down to shield Emma. A dull thud followed, and blood trickled from his forehead down to Emma's chin, dripping onto the floor. The items in his hands scattered everywhere.
James!
Ethan appeared, looking panicked. His hands trembled as he held Emma's shoulders, clearly frightened.
Are you okay? Can you still see me clearly?
Blood stained James's face, yet he managed to smile.
Don't worry, I'm fine.
After saying that, he glanced at Ethan, then left the room, holding his forehead. Lily's resentful and jealous gaze fell on Emma's face.
Don't forget, you're a celebrity online.
Emma's pupils dilated instantly, and a voice echoed in her mind. Get rid of her, and no one will talk about me anymore. Get rid of her, and it will all be over. Emma shook her head frantically, and Ethan held her tighter. She looked at his strong arms and asked only one question.
Who are you?
Ethan paused, patiently writing his name in her palm, one stroke at a time. Emma stared blankly. When I saw James again, he had an ugly bandage on his forehead, obscuring his handsome face.
Can you remember your own matters now?
I thought for a moment and nodded.
Sister.
The heartbreak in Ethan's eyes didn't seem fake, but I didn't feel any pity.
Why did you only forget me?
Why do you call me sister? Do I have a brother?
Oh, I do have a brother.
Where did my brother go?
His expression changed, and his eyes dodged. I bet he didn't dare to tell the truth, and sure enough.
I am your brother, you just forgot me.
He kept asking the doctor why I only forgot him.
Your brain would selectively forget some unpleasant memories.
Ethan froze.
Do I dislike you?
His eyes reddened, but he stubbornly shook his head.
Impossible, sister cares about me the most. You don't dislike me.
I tilted my head and looked at his nervous expression, casually saying,
Then you must dislike me, so I was very sad.
When I said this, his eyes were filled with heartbreak. But I only felt disgusted, so much that I wanted to vomit. He suddenly stood up and hugged me with all his strength.
I do dislike you. I dislike you for being too good. I'm afraid someone will take you away.
I weakly tilted my head back, looking at the white ceiling.
What do I have to say for you to let me go?
I had severe anemia, and he almost hired a chef to make different dishes for me every day. But I couldn't eat a bite. The clean, high-end private hospital room was spotless, and the nurses watched my every move almost 24 hours a day. But my condition kept worsening. That day he didn't come, and for some reason, I breathed a sigh of relief. After a day of freedom, he appeared in my room at night with a cake.
Sister, I'll wait for you to get better. When you get better, I'll take you away from here. Wherever you want to go, I'll go with you.
His face was full of hope, but my heart sank when I heard he wanted to accompany me. The next day, Lily stormed into the ward, resentment etched on her face, accompanied by a nurse.
You claim to have amnesia, thinking that can erase your crime of being the other woman?
Samantha let out a cold laugh, her disdain evident.
Even if I were guilty, it's not your place to judge, especially since you've intentionally hurt others.
Eileen's eyes blazed with fury.
You wretch! When the doctor I found abroad comes back and exposes you in front of Ethan, let's see how you hide then.
The nurse approached Samantha, administering a sedative without a word. Samantha wanted to argue, to point out who was truly acting irrational, but the medication quickly took effect. Lily, like a madwoman, tried to rush over and hit her. The bodyguards at the door heard the commotion and restrained Lily, dragging her away as she cursed loudly. Amid her ranting, Samantha caught a crucial piece of information. Nude photos online. Lily, in a fit of rage, took off her high heels and threw them at Samantha with all her might. The heel struck Samantha's forehead, leaving a deep wound. Her hands trembled, and her shoulders shook uncontrollably. A voice echoed in her mind.
End her, she's too noisy. End her, and there will be peace forever.
Samantha was startled by her own thoughts. Cold sweat dripped from her forehead. Moments later, James rushed in, his eyes wide with concern. He held her hand tightly.
Don't be afraid, it's okay. I'm here.
His gentle voice was like a soothing balm, calming her frayed nerves. The last memory before she lost consciousness was her brother's words.
Samantha, always be a good person.
When Samantha woke up, Ethan was already by her side. Seeing her awake, he immediately grabbed her hand.
Samantha, are you okay?
Samantha couldn't tell if he was afraid she'd remember or afraid she wouldn't. The first thing she said when she woke up was filled with resolve.
I want to be discharged. I don't want to see you again.
The joy on Ethan's face quickly faded, replaced by a sinister look.
Emma, you're dreaming.
His tone was vicious, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. He hated her so much, yet he still held her captive.
What? Still want to starve me? Do as you please. I never want to see you again.
Ethan's expression almost shattered. He stared at her for a long moment.
You remember.
Samantha looked indifferent. Ethan said nothing more and didn't stop her from leaving. Emma quickly packed her bags and left, not letting Ethan see her off. She was afraid that this unpredictable man would change his mind the next second. For some reason, Ethan was particularly true to his word this time and didn't appear in her life again. She enjoyed a rare moment of peace. Later, she ran into James and found out that he had been suspended because someone reported him for accepting bribes. She knew Ethan was behind it, so she felt especially guilty.
James, let me treat you to dinner. I feel terrible about what happened.
Thank you, Emma. I appreciate it.
There was some emotion in his eyes that Emma couldn't understand. It wasn't until a video of her changing her underwear appeared online that she realized the source of her unease. It was Lily. She had once blurted out during a heated argument in the hospital that she had installed cameras in the hotel room. Emma thought it was just a threat. But the underwear incident pushed her back into the spotlight. Emma curled up in a corner of the sofa, hugging herself tightly. She stared blankly at the black screen of the TV in front of her. The person inside was so helpless. Before she could call the police, the video circulating online was taken down. At the same time, a big news story broke. The Shin family went bankrupt overnight. The Gu family broke off their engagement with them. The Gu family acquired the Shin family's company. The only daughter of the Shin family was admitted to a mental hospital. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And it was her attending physician, James, who exposed it. My fingers numbly slid over one message after another, hardly able to believe it. Before this news could spread, another shocking scandal erupted from the Shin family. The eldest daughter had installed cameras in the hotel herself, and the lingerie incident stemmed from videos she released. Suddenly, all the women online were speaking out. Lily's actions had crossed a line for women. Unfortunately, she was in a psychiatric hospital, all electronic devices confiscated, unable to see the current uproar online. These days had been exhausting for the head of the Shin family, Lily's father. He contacted media outlets everywhere, hoping to retract his daughter's scandal, but unfortunately, the bankrupt Shin family was no longer friends with any media company. No one listened to him. The matter seemed to be resolved. That day, I went into a jewelry store with a friend.
Emma, do you think this looks good? Try it on.
All right, I'll give it a try.
Unable to refuse her, I tried slipping the ring onto my ring finger. There was a moment of amazement in my eyes, but it was just a moment. I knew clearly that this had nothing to do with me. I didn't see James smiling behind me. Just as I was about to take it off, a familiar figure rushed in from outside the store.
Samantha, are you planning to marry him?
He forcefully pried the ring off my hand and threw it on the ground, stomping on it hard. The force was so great it almost ground the ring to dust. Grabbing my neck, just as I was about to suffocate, he bit my earlobe.
You'll never marry anyone else in this lifetime.
James suddenly rushed forward to protect me. The store clerks were all panicked but didn't dare intervene.
I warn you. You'll never get rid of me in this lifetime. Life is meaningless without you by my side. Samantha, now it's your turn to play with me.
His eyes stared intently at me, and he pulled out a black card from his pocket, tossing it to the nearby staff.
Buy everything in this store.
Ethan spoke without looking back. I wore a cold expression, but the clerk said,
Sir and Madam are truly in love. There aren't many men willing to spend so much money for their loved ones.
She started screaming before she could finish her sentence. Ethan kicked the glass cabinet door to pieces, going on a rampage and smashing up the store. Mia hid behind me in fear. James had already taken out his phone to call the police.
Ethan, have you had enough?
A sinister smile appeared on Ethan's lips.
Samantha, it's still early. This is just an appetizer for you.
He turned his head and continued his path of destruction.
Wretch, it's all your fault my family went bankrupt.
Lily's familiar voice rang out, still wearing her hospital gown, and she rushed straight to Samantha, not even glancing at Ethan.
You're just the daughter of those responsible. You're just like them.
She gripped Samantha's shoulders tightly and screamed.
All those good deeds are just to cover up your true self. You're so hypocritical. A pretender in love with another pretender.
She was hysterical, and Samantha was frozen in place, unable to move. The secret she had hidden for 20 years was exposed by Lily. The hospital staff finally arrived, apologizing repeatedly before giving Lily a sedative on the spot. Meanwhile, the store's screen was broadcasting new news. The former president of the Shin family, Lily's father, had ended his own life by jumping off the company's building. Ethan heard the commotion and turned around, the store almost completely destroyed, and the clerks had fled to relatively safe areas. The sound of sirens filled the air. Ethan turned to look at Samantha with a wicked smile. James was busy directing the medical staff. Ethan quickly rushed towards Samantha and scooped her up by the waist. Behind them, only Mia's cries for help remained. He placed Samantha on the back seat of his motorcycle in front of everyone. With a rev of the engine, they sped away. The wind howled in her ears, and Samantha instinctively tightened her arms around his waist. His firm muscles tensed suddenly, and he sped up even more. They almost skimmed the ground as they turned.
We're here.
He brought her to an abandoned factory, surrounded by nothing but steel and concrete. She followed him to the rooftop.
Would he harm me here? He despised me so much, maybe he would.
Ethan turned back, a wanton smile on his face. He slowly approached me until he was just a fist's distance away.
Samantha, stop hiding. You're not a naturally good person. Be yourself, be like me.
My eyes trembled. Everything he said was the secret I had been trying to hide for over 20 years. I was never a good person. My parents caused the death of his parents because they had mental illness. This illness, unfortunately, is hereditary. I have it too. A blank spot in my memory was finally filled. I remembered the darkness of my childhood and the salvation my brother brought after he was born. He appeared in my life like a ray of light, a pure good person untainted by our parents' inheritance. My brother's mantra was, "Samantha, you must be a good person." But later, my brother died. My parents died too. Ethan watched the changing expressions on my face and laughed.
Do it, Samantha. I've been preparing for this moment for a long time.
He placed the knife he brought into my hand, the tip pointing straight at himself. The bloodthirsty urge inside me screamed and roared. I wanted to plunge the knife into his body, twist it, and shred all his organs. My eyes darted under my lashes, and seeing this, he continued.
Do you know how your parents died? All these years, weren't you curious? Why didn't you ask me? I love you so much, if you had asked, I would have told you. I was the one who revealed your parents' location to their enemies. And your brother too.
At the last sentence, a clear smile appeared on his face. My younger brother, who died at the same age as Ethan. I could have saved him, but when the enemies arrived, I only had time to save one person. So I saved Ethan, whom my parents owed. When I returned again, I only saw my brother's lifeless body. Ethan watched my expression, knowing I had remembered those buried memories. He took my hand and slowly placed it on the knife handle.
Samantha, be like me.
I saw a wicked smile curl on his lips.
I'm not. I'm not.
Countless voices echoed in my mind.
Kill him, and you'll be free. Kill him, don't you hate him for causing your parents' death? Emma, you're not a good person. Why keep pretending?
The sound of sirens blared as Ethan gripped Emma's hand and plunged the knife into his own body. Emma's internal voice screamed in agony.
Deeper, finish him off.
When the police arrived, Ethan's expression shifted dramatically.
She tried to kill me.
His eyes seemed to say, Samantha, if we can't be together, then let's destroy everything. Emma was taken away by the police, becoming the defendant. The next time Emma saw Ethan was in court. He provoked her with his gaze as the trial neared its end.
Samantha, what good has your kindness done all these years? You still can't hide your true nature as a murderer.
Emma remained silent, but a voice inside kept telling her, Emma, be a good person. You can do it. The fingerprints on the knife handle and the stab wound in Ethan's abdomen were undeniable facts. Emma had no defense. Only James and Mia believed in her. Just before the verdict was announced, a group of people burst in.
Wait, Emma is a good person. She didn't harm anyone.
These people were once her parents' creditors, who came to collect debts after she lost her parents.
Our families urgently needed money. It was our hard-earned savings. Some had family members waiting for life-saving treatment.
As a child, Emma took on the responsibility of repaying the debt, working countless jobs, and finally paying it off. The case took a turn because of their arrival. The case was retried, and the truth finally came to light. Ethan was sentenced for false accusations, and Emma was exonerated. The case was recorded by bystanders and posted online. The netizens who had mocked Emma because of the lingerie incident apologized after learning about her experience.
Who says kindness is useless?
The moment Emma walked out of the courtroom, she seemed to see her brother.
Samantha, you didn't disappoint me. You're different from Mom and Dad. You're different. You're just you, Emma. Samantha, I don't blame you. Next time, let me take care of you.
For the first time, Emma visited her brother's grave. Over the years, due to psychological issues, her brain actively avoided painful memories, so she forgot her only brother. She had never visited him once.
Fortunately, he didn't blame me.
In the photo on his tombstone, he still smiled as brightly as ever, just like he was in life.
I probably won't come again. Take care.
Emma was about to embark on a new journey, hoping for a bright future. When she came out, James was standing under the steps with an umbrella, looking at her through the rain. In his hand was the ring she had tried on. He had bought a new one.
Emma, will you marry me?
The man gently proposed, with a faint smile. Later, a friend told Emma it was James who contacted the creditors and asked them to speak on her behalf. The night Emma learned the truth, she prepared a candlelit dinner for James.
Emma, you really are my angel.
His smile was just as it had always been.